Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pro Edge Podcast. I'm your host, Conrad. Kicking it off here, Season 2. We're bringing back our most popular episode and guest, Dorian Willis. He is a... how do I word this? He was shot 21 times in an altercation with the police, turned to an Olympic athlete. Incredible turnaround story. So we have him back on and in studio. So looking forward to putting that back out and hearing the second part of the story. If you haven't heard the first episode, it's in Season 1 in the 20s somewhere. Dorian Willis
Check it out.
Is on the label of it, so you can check that podcast out on YouTube, iTunes, all the platforms, and then catch up with this one. I'd like to give a shout-out to Rhino Rush, sponsoring Channel 99 Studios, and to our producer, Tim Meyer, always working hard, always keeping the show sounding clean, crisp. Big shout-out to those guys. If you're in the market for some energy, or if you'd like to tone down at night, turn into Rhino Rush's Relax Shot. I've tried it myself. It works pretty good. Calms you down. It tastes great too. No, that's not true. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it works.
Very earthy.
It's earthy.
Yeah,
but
it says it on the bottle too.
Yeah, but don't be a bitch and just fucking drink it, for God's sake. You already
It's a
paid.
shot.
What is it? $3?
Yeah, it's a shot. It's not like you're drinking 2 liters
Yeah,
of
it's
dirt.
Yeah, come on, guy.
Just shoot it back. Yeah.
Try their energy drinks, try their energy shots. They're at all the local gas stations, pretty much, all the supermarkets. I think locally they're pretty saturated, so try them out. Local company right here out of Meridian, Rhino Rush. Also, big shout-out to Jack's Nutrition. If you guys are looking for some supplements, get on down and see Steve and Dustin. They do it right. They've been in the industry, combined over 2 decades. They won't oversell you. They won't undersell you. They know supplements. They know the different blends, formulas, companies that are doing it right, companies that are doing it wrong, what type of testing. And if you're a student athlete, whether you're playing at Boise State or any NCAA institution or any school or a fighter that has to pass drug screening, those guys have real good advice and real good directions on where to point you and what products are safe to take. They don't sell the Chinese chicken there. So if you're in the market, they're, I think, top 10 in the country in sales for a reason. They keep a fully stocked. Like, if you're into supplements, that's where you want to go.
Well, if you talk to Steve down there, man, he's like one of the most knowledgeable dudes I've ever met about supplements. He really is.
He is, yeah.
And
I mean, just
try to price gouge you either. Like, he's extremely fair.
Yeah. Extremely fair. So get on down to Jack's Nutrition and check those guys out. Hey, I want to say to Muse Tattoo a shout out. They do a great job down there. I get all my ink done by Cody Lee. Great artist. He's got a great, helpful staff there. They're good at doing your artwork. They don't rush you. They take their time. When you go to get a tattoo, it's hard to paint the whole picture yourself. You really need an artist to help you kind of broker in that idea. Cody's really good at that. And, fair, cleanest, one of the cleanest tattoo shops I've ever been in my life. Just super clean, sanitary. Those guys do good work. So if you're in the market for some ink, get on down to Muse Tattoo on Main Street in Meridian. All right. In studio today, I have, as always, the handsome Tim Meyer producing for us.
He's so handsome. You're so handsome.
I try.
And I heard he's single, men and ladies. That's fucked up. Huh? Across from me, I got coming back our most successful guest of the year, Dorian Willis.
In the house?
Yep.
Nothing but trouble, though. Obviously.
And then who's that lovely lady next to him? That's Billy, his wife. Could you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, man, that'd be a whole episode in itself. My wife is an incredible person. We've been friends for 20 years. Our kids grew up together. I never knew she had been in love with me since we met. But we've been together for 7 years now, married for 5, and life has just been incredible, man, since we got together. She's really, been my rock through all of this, and she's if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at today for sure.
That's awesome. That's I'll have to talk to my co-host on our other podcast, Kelly, for the CK Couples podcast. Yeah, you guys might be good candidates for that show. We look for like positive couples, influential couples that have worked through problems. Your scenario itself is unique and what you've gone through in life. So, yeah, I'd be curious to kind of dive into how you guys met, how you've worked the relationship thing out with all these different outside things. Because we'll just go ahead and kick it off. If you could give us a quick synopsis of episode 1, I'll let you tell your story as far as we're just going to kind of, if you missed the first episode, we're just going to have them kind of paraphrase what happened and basically up to the shooting, after the shooting. We're just going to kind of briefly rush through that, and then we're going to get to the part, Dorian's comeback, which I've been looking forward to. Super positive story, so please stay tuned in for that. And with that being said, I just wanted to go out there because we had a lot of chit chat on the last comments and stuff on the last episode with Dorian. Just so you guys know, Dorian himself has never said anything negative about the Boise police. In his storytelling, he's always been very professional. There were comments that went back and forth from BPD through me to Dorian on both sides. They were very professional. I think what we did was just try to clear the air a little bit, and that worked. So for this episode, we're just going to stay on the positive message, and I just wanted the viewerships to know that Dorian's been very accountable, very professional, and that reflects on both sides. So there's really no controversy other than what kind of people created. The people involved themselves have been stand up about everything. So Dorian, could you go ahead and kick that off?
Yeah, and like we talked a little bit about this before we actually started today, how it doesn't matter what the topic is. There's always going to be people on both sides that are passionate about both sides, and at the end of the day, the only people that know what happened that day when I was shot are me and the 2 officers that were in the basement.
Yeah.
Not the other 100 officers that were outside looking for me. There's 3 people on this planet that know what happened in that basement.
Yeah.
Me and the 2 officers. And so where I kind of sit with that is, I've reached out several times. It hasn't just been once.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've reached out on multiple occasions because I would love to sit down across from these officers and talk to them. I would really, really like to do that. I don't need any kind of closure. I'm way past that point. This happened 10 years ago, so I don't need any kind of closure. I just think that it would be good on both sides for that to happen.
Yeah, maybe just talk about what happened.
Yeah, and so when I tell my story, man, this is what happened to me. I'm not exaggerating any parts of it. I'm not adding any parts to it. This is what happened to me. And if those officers don't want to take the time to sit across from me and don't want to take the time to say, hey, this is how we remember things, and maybe clear the air a little bit on what exactly we all feel happened that day. Yeah. If they're not willing to do that, then as far as I'm concerned, you can't jump in and say you're 2-piece if you're not willing to sit across from me.
Exactly.
I have nothing but respect and admiration for the police, what they do. I'm real good friends with some of them. I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to cause any problems for them.
Yeah.
But there's some really great guys, and no matter what you do in life, whatever it is,
right.
If you work at a bank, if you work at a gas station, it doesn't matter. There's going to be good and bad people in every profession, and it's no different than the police.
Yeah, and I think we kind of learned that through that last, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're talking about the police. There's going to be a demographic, for sure, like 10% of people that absolutely hate him. No matter what, they could save 1 million lives a day. They're just nasty, horrible, F the police. And then on the other side, there's a 10% that will support police blindly and unlogically.
No matter what they do.
And so, we kind of discovered that because you're the first person we've had. There's been like a controversial police situation, and we learned that it wouldn't have mattered what the show, what the content was really. We would have got the same amount of comments on either side because some people they're just ignorant as bliss, right?
Yeah.
And they're just caught up in their views and they don't want to see it. And so,
well, exactly, and for those of you who have never met me, have no idea who I am, like I absolutely encourage you to check out the first episode that we did, because you're missing a whole lot if you don't jump back and listen. That was an awesome episode, and
it was,
and we ended I think at a great spot because we ended right after I got shot, and so at that point, all anybody's heard is what a maniac and monster I was. And,
Right.
And I also just want to be very clear. I do not blame the police for what happened that day. If I hadn't have been caught up in drugs, I was a drug addict. So if I hadn't been doing the things I was doing, I would have never been put in that situation to begin with.
Yeah,
So,
and in your credit, we do vet all the guests here and their stories. And I talked to Dorian on 2 different occasions before we ever brought you on. At no point has Dorian ever taken accountability for this. He always has. And so that's one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on, is because I think the story we're about to get into is phenomenal.
this is the best part.
Yeah, and for and you can relate it to anything. It's about failure. It's about overcoming circumstances that put roadblocks in your path that seem like you can't get past them. And so, like, learning how you did that is what I'm looking forward to. So take me back. We're give me the year, time, place. Just a quick rundown of how we ended up in the hospital in the coma, and then when you came out of the coma, where we go from there. I think we left off, you're on house arrest. So if you could just get us to that point.
Okay. Yeah. So, just a quick recap. Started my first company when I was 21. Was making a boatload of money. You know, I was at that age. I had no idea what saving money was. You know, as soon as I got it, I was spending it.
Yeah.
And you know, along with all the money, the big house, came, you know, the drugs and the women, and that was just my life. You know, and I thought I was living the dream, but you know, looking back, I was miserable that whole time.
Right.
You know, I really was. It didn't matter what I had, the toys, the boats, the 4-wheelers, none of that. Like, I used things to try to make me happy.
Right.
And I think anybody who has been there know that there is no thing out there that is going to make you happy. You know, it's not about what you have. It's about what you
Inside job.
yeah, it's what you got inside and what you're doing for other people that is going to make you ultimately happy. You know,
The human element.
Yeah, if it's all about you, then you're going to be a sad person for the rest of your life. You know,
Yeah.
your life can't be just about you. But anyway, so when I hit about 26 is when I started really getting into the hard drugs, and over, you know, a 2-3 year period, that just took control of my life. I lost my company, I lost my kids, I lost everything that really mattered, and kind of hit rock bottom. When I hit rock bottom, I was doing things that still make me sick to my stomach today, and ultimately that led me to that day, June 5th of 2008, when the cops showed up where I was at. I took off running from them. I tried to get away, and that part of the story, I think, the people are definitely want. If you missed it,
You need to tune in. Yeah, you need to tune in.
yeah, it's insane. It's something that it's like out of a movie. You know, it really is. At the end of that day, when they found me, I ended up getting shot 21 times. I took 6 to the left arm, 7 to the chest, 6 to the right leg, 1 to the left leg, and 1 to the back, and so it's a miracle that I'm still here today, for sure.
Yeah, 21 times. That's insane.
But they didn't get the moneymaker. What?
Yeah.
Or one of your tattoos.
Yeah, or one of my tattoos. They didn't hit one of my tattoos, which was my mom.
Was really upset
Always
about.
calm. Yeah, she's like, all the bullets and they didn't hit one tattoo.
Now, let me ask you this. So, you were mid-20s, roughly, right?
Yeah.
And then you went 2 to 3 years on drugs?
Yeah, it was really 3 years
Meth?
hard. It started, I had always, for probably since I was 21, I had been a functioning cokehead.
Okay.
And, you know, I really was. I mean, I was running my company. You would never know it. You know, I had two beautiful kids. I was coach. You know, I was doing all these things, but
You used it like a medication.
yeah, you
One
know.
might say, okay.
And it was when I was about 26, 27 is when I got introduced to
Meth?
I knew what it was. I had tried it once right out of high school, but it was like a one-night deal, you know. And then
Yeah.
when I was reintroduced to it, and it was like from the time I used it that first time, it didn't stop for 2 years. I mean, every day I had to have it. Every day, you know, if I didn't have it, I just didn't function. It ended up costing me everything.
Yeah, wow. So 2 to 3 years seems probably like a long time when you're going through it, but in reflection, that it doesn't take long to just kind of destroy your life.
No.
So,
and to put it in perspective, it didn't even take 2 years for me to lose everything. It was within 6 months of me using meth.
Oh, yeah.
I had lost my kids. Before the year was up, my company had went under. So within a year, really, I had lost everything. And by the end of that year, all my toys, the four-wheelers, the boats, the jet skis, all that stuff, I had sold it, one at a time to support my habit. And when I got down to all I had left was my Suburban, and the clothes were in the back of it. Like, that's how far I went down. I went from owning a 4-bedroom house out in Eagle, with all the toys, like I said, you can imagine, down to a Suburban that they were looking for because I hadn't make a payment on it for 6 months, and the clothes that were in the back.
Wow. So you're basically, if I could paint this picture, you've been shot 21 times. You've been in a coma. You have nothing to your name. You're going to prison. So how do we go from financial collapse, legal collapse, physical collapse, mental collapse?
Yeah,
zero. You were down.
Full collapse.
You were whittled down to a 0% of nothing. Basically, if we look at a human life and we go, what are the things that drive you and keep you functioning every day? You'd lost all that.
Yeah.
There was nothing there.
My life, if you watch videos of 9/11 when the Twin Towers fell, that was my life. It was devastating. Everything just came crumbling down. And when I got shot, after I got shot, so I was in the hospital for a total of, I think, about 9 months. I was in a coma for 3. When I was in the coma, they can only feed you so much through a tube, right? So,
right.
I started losing weight. Just, it was coming off after about week 6. They said that they just couldn't feed me enough through the tube to keep any weight on. So when I woke up out of the coma, I was 220 pounds when I got shot. When I woke up out of the coma, I weighed 129 pounds. So
okay,
literally half of me was gone. Like, I couldn't stand up. I was just skin and bones. When I see pictures of me back then, and I tell kids this all the time, the hardest part for me during my stay at the hospital was not the 6 hours a day that they spent ripping bandages off and putting them back on. It wasn't, the continual coming in and out of surgeries to repair this, repair that. Like, none of that seemed even remotely as hard as when they, every day, so in the hospital, I was at St. Alphonsus, and St. Al's, I want to give a shout out to St. Al's, man, because those people over there, they saved my life. They're absolutely amazing. I can't say enough about the doctors and nurses that are there. They really did save my life. But the hardest part for me through all that was every day they would wheel me somewhere, in the bed from my room to CAT scans, from my room to take an MRI. There was always somewhere in the hospital every day that they had to take me. And when they would wheel me into the elevator, that was the hardest part.
Because you could see yourself.
There was mirrors on all sides.
Wow.
And so when they wheeled me in, I remember, like, every time they would wheel me into that elevator, I would start to cry. And I never told them why, but they were just like, oh, what is wrong with this guy? Like, every time we come in the elevators, I would just basically break down sobbing. And it was because I had to, no matter where I looked, I had to see myself. And I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that's experienced this, but when you see yourself in the mirror and you hate everything about what you see, when you hate that person that's staring back at you, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a very hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. So out of all of it, all the pain, all the things I had to go through while I was in the hospital, nothing even comes close to that. And I think at the time that's exactly what I needed. I needed those mirrors surrounding me so I could really take a hard look at who I was, who I had become, and the repercussion of everything that I had done.
Now, looking back, I'm going to jump forward here. Do you look back at this event as a blessing?
Absolutely. Cool. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's, people might think that's crazy. This guy got shot 21 times. I'm missing a leg now, and but if none of that had happened to me, and that's pretty extreme, when you have to say, I'm glad that I was shot 21 times. I'm glad that happened to me, because it you could go either one or two ways with it, man. And people do. You either take that and use it as an excuse to wallow in your own self-pity and feel sorry for yourself the rest of your life, or you use that as the bouncing board and come back. And that's, it wasn't until I went to prison, though, that the change started happening in me. During my stay at the hospital, I was still angry at the wrong people. I was angry at the police. I was angry at, this person for not helping me. I was angry at that person. I was angry at everybody but the person that was responsible.
You're a victim.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then that was probably, there's got to be some confusion there too, I think, as a human, because, you're angry at the police, right? You knew you were in the wrong to a degree in the lifestyle you're living, but how does that emotionally, how do you wear that? How do you get past that point where you're like, when does the self-realization come of, okay, so I am a victim in a sense, but when you turn the switch off to go, you know what, me being a victim isn't making any progress in my life, that came in prison?
So
okay.
And every time I thought that I had hit rock bottom, like, I had about 4 layers below that of shit that I had to deal with. And
a shitty Randy Travis song. Just all rolled up into one.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was they sent me to prison. It was a federal charge, so they sent me to a federal penitentiary in Southern California and down in San Pedro, Terminal Island. Sounds like a fun place, right?
Yeah.
Terminal Island. Al Capone actually did time there. It's a really old prison. It used to be a naval base. And, as far as prisons go, I got to say that it was not a bad place. I was 75-degree weather all the time. I was, literally in the ocean. Prison isn't anywhere that I wish upon anybody. And no matter how you chop it up, no matter where it's at, prison is prison. You have somebody telling you when to wake up, when to sleep, when to work. It's every part of your life is controlled.
They're rehabilitating you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if that's what you want to call it. But so when I got to prison, like, really, that was where the rock bottom finally stopped. I'm sitting outside. My sister lived in Huntington Beach, which is about 45 minutes away from where I did my time. So I flew down and I did what everybody would do before they go to prison. I went to Disneyland.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Where are you going?
I wonder if they asked that in federal court. All right, son, I'm sending you to a federal penitentiary. What are you going to do? Well, Your Honor, I'm going to stop by Disneyland first. Thank you. You wig-wearing fuck. No.
There was no smiles at Disneyland, though. Like, I was really just trying
How much
not
time
to have
were you
a breakdown.
looking at? For sure. Like, you could go in and maybe get it reduced a little, or you knew it was fixed?
Well, so honestly, I thought I was getting 5
Okay.
because my charge was a weapons charge. So when I went in, I really that's kind of what I had expected. But when I went in, I think because of everything that I had been through, the year before, I think the judge was like, you know what, dude,
that's kind of time served.
You've learned a very hard lesson, and so he gave me the mandatory minimum that he could, and so I ended up doing 2 years, and it wasn't till about 6 months, because I had my leg, keep in mind, for about a year after I got shot. It was just so much damage. I didn't have any feeling in my foot. I had drop foot. The whole side of my calf was just basically an open wound. You could see all the muscles, moving when I walked. Like, it was kind of gnarly. So we just couldn't get that to heal. And so when I finally got sentenced, the doctor said, look, if you go to prison with it like this, you're going to get an infection. You're going to die. And so it wasn't, at that point, I had been through so much that
losing the leg.
When they said, we're going to chop the leg, I was just like, whatever, and take it. Like, it kind of shocked them. They're like, people don't usually just say whatever, go ahead. That's usually something that's hard for people to deal with. Like I said, I had just been through so much that year before, and I was just at a point where I didn't care. I was just like, do whatever you got to do, chop it off, take them both, I don't care.
They weren't like, do you want to wait till after Disneyland?
Yeah. So I went down about 5 or 6 days before I had to turn myself in, and spent a couple of days with my sister, and I have 2 brothers and a sister, and me and my sister have always been the closest. And So when she took me that day, she took me in, and we're sitting at the front. You know, she pulls up, and there's 30-foot high fences with barbed wire everywhere. There's guards walking around with automatic, with semi-automatic machine guns walking around.
Right out of the movies.
Yeah, like when you see it, you're just like I was terrified. Like I was sure that I was not coming out of there, man. Like in my head, for some reason, I thought that once I was in there, that they were going to start throwing all these other charges at me, because I had done some just evil shit, man. And I was just waiting for all that to come back to me. I didn't think that I was.
You didn't think the old karma gods were done with you?
Yeah. I'd just been hit time after time, and I was like, it's going to keep coming. Once I'm through those gates, I'm not coming out. Like I knew that from the bottom of my heart that I wasn't coming out of there. And obviously that's not the case. But so,
where did you pull positivity from? Going in these, if there was any, like, if were these small moments, where did you pull your hope from, or what gave you a sense of strength?
It wasn't about till about 6 months in, really.
So your days were mostly just fucksville.
Yeah, for about 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Just
depressed.
I had a hard time. Getting out of bed, it was just really.
And I think there's something to be said when you're physically, like when you can't function like you normally do, walk through the mall or whatever you did, manual labor. If you're not exerting yourself physically, so to be in a hospital and then have those medical conditions, God, yeah. Not only are you dealing with all that stuff, you don't get to exercise, you don't get to really walk around much or get kind of what you need to keep your body happy.
Yeah, and I think anybody and everybody who who exercises in the gym, that's your body needs that, man. You if you're not taking care of yourself, and I'm still guilty of it. There's times where I start to feel like shit because I'm not taking care of myself.
Right.
And luckily I have an amazing wife who always points that out. Hey, shithead, start taking care of yourself. And so, but that first 6 months, and I had just got my first leg, like 2 weeks, and so I could barely walk on this thing. Like every time I took a step, like it was excruciating pain.
Wow.
And so I hobbled my way up to the front gates, and I told my sister when we got there, because she started crying. I was like, "Look, I don't want you to see. I don't want you to see this. Leave. Like, get out of here." And she's like, "I can't." And I was like, "Sis, I'm not going to sit here with you. I got to get out." So I got out of the car and I walked to the gates, and I knew, like, I know she didn't leave. She sat there and probably cried in her car until the door shut, and who knows how long she sat there after that. But I couldn't look back, because I knew if I looked back that I was going to lose it, that I was going to lose it. So I couldn't look back. I just sat there at the gates and smoked like 5 packs of cigarettes in the waiting room, one after one, until they came and got me. And so that first 6 months, once again, it was just really a lot of depression. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I wasn't exactly making any friends there. I didn't care to make friends. I was there to do my time and get done. And my sister, 6 months into this, sends me a letter. And at the time, there was very few people that were talking to me because of everything I had done. And I don't blame them one bit. My mom was still talking to me and my sister, and that was about it. And so I get this letter from my sister 6 months in, and in the letter is just a short letter, and she said, "Look, I can't stop thinking about you. I just want you to know you are still here for a reason, and I love you." That's all it took, man. But what really, when I finally saw some kind of light, was in that same letter that she had sent. There was a little card in there, and I'm not a big religious guy, but there was something about this card. There was Jesus sitting on a bench with a guy who, a rough-looking kid, and at the bottom it said "Lost and Found." And there was something about that card that I didn't feel alone. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. There was one person that still gave a shit about me. There was still one person that believed that all the things that everybody was saying about me, that monster, lock him up, throw away the key, he doesn't deserve to be alive. All these things that people said that I agreed with, lock away the key, throw me up, I'm a monster. Like, you start to believe that when that's all you hear for so long. You start to believe that, but then here's this one person who still believes that that the good is still in there, and that there was a reason why I was still alive, and so I saw a little light at the end of the tunnel, and I grabbed onto that fucking light, and I didn't let go, man. And so every day after that letter, I just made a decision. You know, I have to change this. If I don't do something now, my life is going to be the same forever.
Now, do you think that card could have ignited your own subconscious?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I think you have to believe to the level from where you were at to where you're at now. Yeah, that was godsend, and then maybe your subconscious believing, like that flipped the switch on, like, hey, I can still.
Yeah, just a reminder, like, you know, my life wasn't always about drugs. Like, you know, I used to be a great guy, man. You know, I have tons and tons of friends in this community. I've been around here since 1990. You know, so I know a lot of people around Boise, and I wasn't a monster, and I wasn't a piece of shit. I had just done some really dumb shit when I was using, and it made me somebody that I wasn't. And so every day, like I said, I just started taking steps forward. I just made sure that if I was going to take a step, it was going to be in the right direction. So every day I started hobbling my ass down to the weight pile, you know, doing laps around the track and trying to get stronger physically. And that really carried on into the mental state, because when you start feeling good physically, then you start feeling good mentally. And so you know, it was probably 2 or 3 months after I got that letter, you know, I'm starting to feel really good. I'm probably you know, in better shape than I had been in years. And I started making some really incredible friends down there. While I was in prison, I was really fortunate to be around the group of guys in prison that I was at. I was in they had cells over on one side of the prison, and then dorms on the other side. And so the dorm that I was in, I was just really surrounded by a great group of guys. And you know, you don't find that in prison. You know, people have this idea that everybody in there is just these horrible people, and we're all just people. We all make mistakes. The only difference is I got caught, you know, and these people, you know, none of us are guilt-free, and none of us are innocent. We've all done shit in our life that probably could have got us thrown in jail. It's just I got caught.
Yeah, and I think there has to be a path to redemption, unless it's, you know, there's some things in life that people do or are out there.
Yeah.
For the most part, as a society, we need a path to redemption. And all those people that want to throw stones at guys that have made mistakes, and a lot of times they're fucking weird in their own elements. I don't know how many religious people I've met that have been sexual deviants,
right?
Have all these. It's like, so I'm always quick to not judge, but like I put up a warning flag from now on. If I meet someone that's super religious and they want to put God in my face 24/7,
what are you doing behind closed doors?
Yeah, you know where I learned that from? My father, who's a detective.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, he's someone that deals with people. Like, you got to be careful with that. And as a society, just like people damning you for what you did and not wanting to give you a path to redemption. Like, man, we're human. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. And like, so I don't like that attitude. I think in most cases there needs to be a path to redemption.
Absolutely. And you know, usually it's the people that are so quick to judge and so quick to condemn you. They're just hiding behind their own shit, and that's their way of deflecting, you know. And you're absolutely right. So in prison, and that holds especially true in prison, because there was not one person that I met who you know didn't have their face in a Bible all day, and every time they got a chance, you know, they're preaching, you know, they're preaching about the Bible. Every one of those people that I met in prison were the ones, you know, sexual deviants, you know, who were in there because they molested kids, and so it's after the first couple months you learn real quick, if they got a Bible in their hand, you know, you don't want to.
Yeah, it's a rocky road, and I'm not knocking religion or the Bible.
No, not at all.
I'm just saying, like, you know, when there needs to be a path to redemption, and when someone is that adamant about something, or they want to cast stones so hard, my red flag goes up. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
they're doing something.
Yep.
Right. If they want to damn you so goddamn much, and not give you a path of redemption, who are they touching?
And once again, what are you doing behind closed doors?
Exactly.
But prison, once again, I don't. it's not somewhere where I wish on anybody, man. It's not a pleasant place by any means. But I was really fortunate to be surrounded by the guys that I was in there, and they made a big difference on how I did my time. And so every day I was just, working on making myself better. I started trying to repair the relationships the best that I could in prison. I was writing, my family's, my nieces, my brothers, letters, just, trying to put some kind of foundation there for when I got out. And so by the time I got out, I served a year and a half, and then and I had to do 6 months halfway house. So when I got out, I went directly to the halfway house. But when I got out, I had a different mindset than I had ever had before, and for the first time in my life, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew what I wanted to do. And so I immediately started going to schools and asking if I could come speak to their kids. And I can tell you that for probably the first year, I got nothing but no way, nope. Every door was slammed in my face. But I didn't give up.
Now, isn't that... You know why that door was shut too. Like I could sit in the school board as a fly on the wall and probably predict what happened.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You've got a bunch of religious people for one, for the most part. Let's call it what it is. Let's say 80% of them. Let's say there was one atheist in the school board here, which would be phenomenal, but not happening. But so you got these people looking at this situation, and instead of looking at it like, okay, here we have this guy that what we preach in school about failure in life with drugs, he went through it.
The epitome of it. The knowledge base our children could pull from him, from his experiences, from listening to him talk, would be phenomenal. Well, and a lot of time,
but they didn't look at it like that, did they?
No, they didn't. And a lot of time with these schools, they think that they're protecting their kids by not talking about it, and that's the worst fucking thing that you can do. It's the worst thing that you can do.
I tell people that are too weird with their kids. I have a friend, for example, and their kid was going to go to a church camp with the other parent that was a Christian denomination. I don't even remember the two denominations, but it's like Presbyterian and Lutheran or whatever, right? And they went all off on the false prophet and all this and that, and they're not going to let them do. And I've said, if you look statistically where most fundamental atheists come from, they come from really religious Christian families. It's like 90% of your extreme atheists are from, and it's like, I don't know if that's good to pound that in people's heads.
Well, and it's not good to force feed it into your kids either. Let them make their decisions.
Exactly.
Give them the tools. And guide them the way that you believe is going to be best for their lives. But at the end of the day, if you force feed something down a kid's throat, and that's kind of what happened to me. I was force fed my entire life. My whole family's Mormon, even though I grew up in the ghetto in Colorado. My family and the Mormon religion has great family values, man. They
do, yeah.
I grew up with, my parents are still married. They drive each other crazy and want to kill each other most of the time, but they're still married. I had a great family when I was raised. There wasn't anything that was missing. My dad was always there. My mom was always there. But the one thing the mistake that I think they made was shoving that down my throat my entire life. And
then you went a little extreme.
Yeah. They knew from the get-go that I was going to be the one, man.
Yeah.
I think they knew from the time up, I was probably 2 years old, that this kid is going to give me problems.
Smoking a cigarette on the merry-go-round. As a 5-year-old, they're like, where did he get a smoke?
Little tattoos from the Cracker Jack box all over the place. So that they, I think they knew, but it was really force fed down my throat, and from a very, very young age, there was things that I just did not agree with. That when you're that young, you can't really put it into words why you don't feel right about going or you don't want to go. But I never felt comfortable in that situation in the church, and so. When I got old enough to start making my own decisions, I absolutely did. They couldn't get me to go to church from, about the time I was 13, 14. They just could not get me to go.
Yeah. So you think that definitely played a role in how you flip-flopped a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't put much
stock into
that. Yeah, but it was definitely I was always different than my brothers and my sisters.
So how hard was it to find positive people in prison to be around? Because you eventually made some friends, right? After that 6 months, that light turned on.
When I started being friendly, when I started, getting out of my own.
Did you attract them, or did you get attracted to a certain group or a certain mentor, maybe?
Probably the biggest influence while I was in there, and somebody that I will love to the day I die, K-Pook. What's up, K-Peasy? But he, this big, he's like 6'6".
Sounds
300.
Jewish.
Yeah, K-Peasy.
No, that's a joke.
But he's this big, 6'6", 350-pound black dude. But the big teddy bear, nicest dude. He was a DJ down in Los Angeles. Knew all these, famous people. He was in there on a conspiracy charge. Somebody made a phone call from his phone, and he was serving 15 years. It was insane. But he was in the bunk right next to me, and we ended up becoming best friends. But when I say that I was surrounded in that dorm by just the greatest group of guys, I was so fortunate because my time could have been a lot different.
Worse.
Yeah, it could have been a whole lot different. I had Josh K-Pook, who was my best friend while I was in there. My bunkie that was above me was this insane drunk Irish dude, Patrick O'Brien.
Sounds Irish.
There was I was just really, but I was surrounded. Everybody I was surrounded with, they were just genuinely probably the coolest, nicest guys that I've ever met, and we were a family back there, and that made a huge difference on how I did my time.
And also the beautiful group of people it was, because it is no joke when you do get into prison, it is segregated. They try and
black, white, Mexican.
And this group was the least of the segregated.
Yeah.
You had black, Mexican, white,
My
Irish,
prison pics.
it's amazing. You don't find pictures like that at all.
Anybody who's seen prison pics, it's always just a group of white dudes or a group of black dudes, or
Right.
a group of Mexicans all have that same pose in the pictures. But in the prison pics, the few prison pics that I have, there's me, Josh, a big old black guy, Pete, who is the black shot caller. He's in a wheelchair. He was from Compton. I had my Irish roommate, or my Irish bunkie. Then Sammy Silva, who was one of the Mexican shot callers. Like, there was the most motley crew of people in my prison pics. But
you guys are like the Brady Bunch of the prison.
Yeah, man. Like we just it was just a great group of guys, and we became best friends. And I think I've seen just about all of them besides Pat. Since I've been out, I went and spent a couple days down in Los Angeles for Josh's birthday this year. And
have they all found a path in life? Or have any of them returned?
No, not one of them that I know of. Patrick O'Brien, he's the only guy that I haven't talked to, that I haven't been able to get a hold of since I've been out. But every one of the guys.
But he's
that
drunk and Irish.
Yeah,
so what are the chances?
Who knows? Yeah, exactly. He's gonna eventually.
He'll turn up at a St. Patty's Day somewhere. I'm sure.
Patrick.
Hey, fucko! It's Halloween.
No, I could. We could do a whole nother show just on the stories that I have from prison. Like there was some absolutely hilarious shit that happened while I was in there. But no, every single one of these guys. I think when we were all just really on the same page with, we made our mistakes and we were paying for it. And when we got out, we all knew that was going to be the last time we ever went back.
So you go from at an all-time zero in failure, financially, socially, mentally,
you name
physically.
Mm-hmm.
6 months in, you get a card with like Jesus on a bench. It maybe flips your subconscious. It just lets you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that you could still do some stuff, that you're a good person deep down inside. And I think for a lot of people, I know for me with my problems with alcohol, it seems when I quit drinking, it's been over 3 years ago now, about a year in, I started to become like my old self. Like, I felt like a kid again almost.
Yeah,
it was weird.
yeah.
I think what happens is with anything chemically in our bodies, we start to suppress our emotions or handle our emotions with it, for example. Mm-hmm. And I think alcohol is a good example, or any drug. We use it to celebrate to begin with. It turns into, at a funeral, or, I kicked ass at work this week.
Or I had a rough day at work.
Yeah. You start using it to handle your emotions. So pretty soon your emotions are kind of based off of that state of mind maybe, or that wiring in your system physically even. And so that change is, I think, real big. And when you mentioned, like, for the first time, like, I felt like that again, that rings true with me too. Like, it's this change that goes on where you start to feel your emotions again that are sincere.
Yeah,
and you start to see, you start to see
chemicals.
who you are.
Well, and remember who you are.
Yeah, so you go from all that, and now you're seeing who you are. You're starting to believe yourself again. You happen to find yourself, and this would just be probably karma because of your attitude, right? Once you started believing yourself, you probably attracted yourself to the smallest. What are the percentage of good guys you could get around in prison?
Yeah, and that's what I think about that all the time, man. You know, if you get lucky enough to be, you know, maybe have one good person in prison that you're surrounded with, I mean, I would call that a win.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, don't get it twisted. There is some absolute piece of shit people that they deserve to be in prison, and you know, when they get out, it's just a revolving door for them. And unfortunately, prison is not set up for rehabilitation. It's not.
No, not for
They can paint a picture however they want, but prison, the programs they have are garbage.
All you got to do is pull the data.
Yeah.
And anyone with logic can go, hey, when we're failing 70% of the time,
we're doing
more,
something
we're
wrong.
Doing something wrong.
Yeah, and when you get out, it's not set up for success. You know, these programs that they have are not set up to help you succeed.
Exactly.
They're not. And so when you get out of prison, you have the cards stacked against you. Now I'm a felon. I have a violent criminal, you know, history. I've been shot 21 times by the police. So, I mean, think about this. I went back to school immediately when I got out too. So I got my degree. I got a bachelor's in computer-aided draft and design, and I graduated with honors. You know, I had straight A's through school. But you think that when I go to apply for a job and I have all these credentials and all these things that I accomplished in school,
doesn't mean two fucks.
But at the bottom of that page, I had to check felon. You know, who you think they're going to hire, me or the guy that has the same credentials next to me?
Yeah, and you know what's scary? How many felonies are committed in this country every day with just on the business side, on everyone's side, paperwork wise? It's scary.
It's insane.
I just
anyway.
So
they, you know, these programs and
I'm with you.
So prison is not set up for success.
It's not.
And so when you get out, you make one little mistake, you know, you're just trying to, like, I know guys, they couldn't find a place to live, and so they got violated and sent back because no one will rent to a felon.
Right.
You know, so not only I'm living with my mom again. Thank God, you know, my mom still loved me after all the shit that I put my family through. You know, I mean, I can't say enough amazing things about my mother. You know, she really she was the reason why I was able to succeed, and she gave me somewhere safe to be so I could work on myself and work on getting through everything that had happened. And so you know, I'm trying to knock down every door I can. And then I finally got my break really when Idaho Meth Project called me and approached me, and they said, hey, you know, you have an incredible story. We would absolutely love if you came with us and spoke at some schools. And I was like, absolutely. And so that first year that I was speaking with them, I ended up speaking to more schools and more kids than every one of their volunteers combined, all of them in the state of Idaho. So I just caught fire as soon as they let me in one door. I couldn't do it enough. Like when I go in there and I was sharing my story, like I could tell I was making a difference. And when you get done at the end of the day and you know, everybody's getting up to leave, and you have, you know, 4 or 5 kids every time that you go and speak to school who want to stay and just and cry and vent to you and hug and know that they are not alone, like that is powerful. And I found I guess you could say my redemption. Like I found my redemption in helping these kids and giving them hope that no matter how bad it is right now, however bad you think it is, like it's ultimately your decision. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep going down that road that you're on and keep feeling the way that you're feeling, or are you going to make some changes right now? Use this point as a turning point in your life and start doing something great.
Yeah, and I think your story needs to be told more in schools.
Well, yeah, and
there's this victim mentality going around that
it's
toxic. It's really toxic. Well, and even if you were a victim times 100, at some point you turned it around, right? And so you've that roadmap you were talking about, and I've gone through it. I've experienced the same thing. How to get employed, how to rent a place, how to purchase a home, how to come over these obstacles that were put in your life from your own mistakes, but the redemption around them isn't real.
Right. Yeah.
And so we expect people to, and like I said, in some cases, but so you built a roadmap on, you've taken paths that haven't been taken before, and through adversity that is insane. So take me into that. You're talking about speaking to these schools. You're affecting these kids' lives. At what point did you start dreaming about becoming an Olympian?
Well, so during my time in prison, after that 6 months, I talked about how I really started focusing on getting physically healthy again. And so exercise, I was just exercising every day for hours, every single day. And so when I got out, I was really healthy, probably the healthiest I had been in years since, high school.
And take me back. When does Billy come into the picture?
So we're about to get to that.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I was...
Yep. So anyway, so like I said, we had been friends for a long time. But I when I got out, I kept that momentum with exercise. Like I was in the gym every single day. I was just trying to stay healthy, and it really made a huge impact on how I was able to mentally deal with those times, which happened a lot, where I got knocked. People were trying to knock me back down and keep me down there, because that's that monster that I had been, painted, like that's who people thought I was. Like I ran.
They want their proof of concept to come to fruition.
They want me to be down there. They want me to fail. Still 10 years later, there is still people that are out there that just are waiting for me to fail.
That was obvious.
You got a long way ahead of you. Just letting you guys know, whoever's out there, you got a long way ahead of you.
And that was obvious. And on the contrary, looking back, I don't think I've ever heard you say a negative thing about anyone, as far as like. And that's probably, it's unfortunate, but those people.
No, you know what? I'm not mad at these people, man. I feel sorry for them. If your life, if you're that angry at somebody else you've never met, like you've got to start focusing on what's making you so angry. Maybe
that's a valid point. Yeah, I think it's talked about sometimes with the trolls. And we don't even acknowledge it anymore.
And why would you?
I think I went through our YouTube and just shit canned our inbox, because I'm like, I'm not gonna go through all these.
Well, and think
negative
about
energy
this.
Or positive, but like it's like
I'm barely on Facebook anymore. I'll get on there and post pictures of my job, but we started really looking at how it was making us feel when we would get on there, especially through the elections. Holy shit, man! Like it was just so much negativity on there, and so when I would get off, I wouldn't feel good, And so why do I want to? I don't want to feel like this. And so, like, we really are rarely on there. When I get on there, I'm just trying to post some positive stuff about, check out, I'm going here, I'm doing this. I try to keep people, because I have a lot of people that are following me who have been following me through this whole journey that I've been on since I've been out of prison. And so many people out there have been so supportive, and I have just some great people in my life, and so I want to keep those people up to date with what I'm doing. But for the trolls out there, like, maybe you need to take just 5 minutes and look at why you're so angry at what everybody else is doing, and why you want somebody else to fail so bad you've never met.
Let me ask you this: so since you're a recovering addict, I've had my issues with alcohol. I think when you first get sober, clean, it's fucking terrifying. You forecast everything you're going to do in the future. If my buddy has a wedding, is there going to be booze there? Is there going to be this? Like, by the time that you made it out back into the civilian world for your comeback, were there ever any moments where you almost relapsed? Were you still forecasting? Had you moved on? Because it'd been a couple years at this point.
Just right when I got out of prison. So even though I had felt really solid in my recovery where I was at that point in time, but when I got out, so the girl that I was dating when I got shot, I wish her the best, but she was just there was nothing good coming from that, and
right.
there was no, that's the best way to put it, there was just nothing positive that was going to come out of that. She was one of the people that really still was there for me to talk to when I was going through prison, and I thank her for that. But at the end of the day, like, there was just really nothing good that was going to come out of that. And so I got out, and when I got out of the halfway house, we got a place. We had a place out in Middleton, this little house. That's where her whole family lives. So we lived right across the street from her mom. And it was probably a month after I'd been out, and I found out she had been using, and there was drugs in the house, and like for 2 seconds I was like, maybe, and then like immediately like in that same thought, as soon as I was like, maybe I should, it'd be fun to use with her one time.
Yeah, I think people will talk to me, like my girlfriend was asking me the other day because she had a glass of wine and she's like, does it bug you? And I'm like, maybe in the first year I remember that intense feeling of missing out on something, even though you weren't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it had been part of my social life for so long.
And how do I be social without a drink in my hand?
Yeah, exactly. But I think about year 2, I've talked about it before, like my emotions, my mentality on it, everything changed. And I think it's because I've rewired my thinking and my body and stuff like that. So I was like, no. I mean, the only time, I guess we went on a date to Amsterdam, and I was there till about 11:30, and I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here because there's nothing there for me after 11:30. People are starting to get drunk and loud and stupid, and so I'm like, let's bail. And I don't even go to bars anymore. And 2 years ago, I wouldn't have walked in there, but now I'm like far enough along. But like, so yeah, I think it was a good thing you probably did go to prison because that gave you that. You said you were close, so all that time sober to overcome that's big because people still have those thoughts in recovery. It's part of recovery. You're gonna fantasize about it.
Well, and with recovery, unfortunately, too many times recovery also includes relapse.
Relapse, yeah.
And I've just when I felt like that, like maybe I could use one time and have a good time with her one night. Like in the same breath, I was going, "What in the fuck are you thinking, man? Like, you've been shot 21 times. Like, you went to jail you just got out of prison. Serving 2 years. You just got out. Like, why would you?" And so, like, I was so angry at myself for even playing with the idea.
Yeah.
Like I was angry, and so it was like a week later. I told her, I said, I gotta go. And so I packed up. She moved to Washington. I moved to my mom's house, and my mom couldn't have been happier because my mom did not like her from since day one. Like,
man.
And so when I moved back in with my mom, that gave me that environment to where I didn't have to worry about that. And really at that point in time, the only people that were coming around were my lifelong friends,
Right.
The people that drugs weren't a part of their life. And so all of a sudden I'm surrounded again by the people who really care and the people who want to see me succeed. And I was so scared of letting those people down. That was part of my motivation for years, was I did not want to let these people down. I cared about what they thought and how much, just the fact that they were still there after everything that I had done. These people are still here and they still love me. Like, how could that be? How can you love somebody who has done everything that I've done?
Yeah, and I think we talked about it last time, but like when you're in an addiction, a lot of times you're self-aware.
Oh yeah.
And so for you to, I've let people down too over mistakes. To live in that,
we all do.
Yeah, to live in that is a fucking nightmare. It's not something to be, and so for you to, acknowledge that and have that next opportunity, knowing that they're giving you the chance, but that must have been a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, and the people that were there then, they're still in my life today.
Exactly. They're solid people.
They're still
right?
there, man. And these are my family. Like, my friends are. I've never been really close with my brothers, but my friends, like, those are my family, man. Like, these guys have been there since day one, and I could call them today. Doesn't matter what I need, and they would be there. But so when I started getting in and speaking to these schools, and I knew with all my heart that I was making a difference, even if it was just in one kid. If I spoke to a school that had 1,000 people sitting there watching me, and one kid stayed after and said, "You know what? I'm going down that road, and because of something you said today,
it was worth it.
I'm changing my life, and that was worth it." Like, I have kids message me still all the time that I spoke to their schools, 5-6 years ago, and they're still messaging me, "Hey, I did this today, and it's so rewarding to see these kids, the path that they were going down and what they're doing now. It's amazing."
Yeah, and I think we need to be self-aware with all the divorce and step parenting and stuff that's going on nowadays. Like, kids need, especially young boys, young girls, whatever, they need mentors in their life. And if the parent isn't there to do it, in a lot of cases, people from troubled homes latch on to guys like Dorian because of their story and their mentorship. And And I think that's super important.
And I don't, I think my mom's told me several occasions. My wife has told me many times, you can't save everybody, but at the end of the day, I try. Like if I have a minute, it doesn't matter if these kids call me at 2:00 in the morning, 4:00 in the morning. I don't care. If they're sending me messages, I mean, because I've gotten messages at all hours of the nights from not just kids that I spoke with, but adults who have been watching what I've been doing over the the last 10 years. Hey, this is what I'm going through. I don't know what to do, and I don't have the answers. And I can tell you one thing that with addiction, especially with meth. There's never an easy answer, because when they ask me what can I do, you got to let them hit rock bottom.
Yeah,
you got to there's nothing that you can do as a person for and it's not just a meth addict, but especially for meth addicts. When they ask what can I do, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do for that person besides love them. That's all you can do. At the end of the day, if you just show them love and let them know that they are loved, you just got to let them hit rock bottom, because that's what needs to happen. Unfortunately, with meth, the statistics are so scary. 9 out of 10 people that try meth are addicted. 9 out of 10, and people that get sober off meth, like the percentages of people that get clean off meth once they're addicts, it's you either go to prison or you die.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally, there's not one person that I was using with during this time that did not go to prison. And it's what you do after that point when you've had the time to get sober. What are you going to do?
Some of them are dead now, too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't count how many other people that I was using with that are dead.
Yeah, you don't meet old heroin addicts.
No,
right?
you don't. Not very often.
Meth addicts really either.
No, not very often.
Burnt themselves out in jail, or.
Yeah, and for the ones out there who have done it, I mean, I give you nothing but props and respect, because it is not something that's easy to do.
To kick.
Yeah, and so I'm speaking all these schools, and I'm in the gym constantly, and then my wife comes into the picture, and this is where my life gets really awesome, and this woman right here was really the foundation where a lot of this started. Both of us have fighting backgrounds. I boxed for a lot of years, and my wife taekwondo. Judo. I'm sorry, judo. Yeah, so she did judo for a long time. So when I ran into her, she had just gotten out. My wife has done 6 years.
Less than 24 hours.
Yeah, less than 24 hours she had been out. And so I was dropping my son off to go play with her son, and her kid ran up to me and goes, "My mom's out. You got to go say hi." I was like, "Shut up." So I got out, because we've been friends for a long time. I ran over, gave her a big hug, and we sat there and talked for like an hour or two, just sitting while the kids were skateboarding. She lived just a block away from the skate park, so we walked over to her house, and when we walked in, she didn't have anything. There was a bed in the bedroom, and
my prison radio.
Yeah, her little prison radio, and like one pan in the kitchen. Like that was everything she had in the house. And she called me later that night, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to come over and carve pumpkins?" And I was like, "Absolutely, come over and hang out with you." So I went over. When I walked in, there was cardboard on the floor, and we went and got pumpkins. And I've just always valued her as a person, as a friend. She'd always been such a genuine and amazing friend to me, and so it was like when people say, I always thought that when people say, I just knew that she was the one. I always thought that was bullshit.
Until you met her.
Yeah. Until we ran into each other, and I mean, it was like 2 or 3 days after we had been hanging out, and I was like, I never want to be without this woman. I never want to be without her.
I think it's easy to be cynical on relationships and love and stuff, just because everyone gets their heart broke. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
But so when we got together, we were just really on the same page with what we wanted out of life. We started looking for a gym and ended up at we looked for a boxing gym, but we ended up at a MMA gym called Hardcore. And so we started we both started training, and every day at the beginning, and this is where things really started happening for me in my athletic career. I had been trying to get a prosthetist to help me out and get me a running leg so I could start running. But I was also smoking again when I got out of prison, and so
cigarettes, folks.
Yeah, cigarettes, not weed,
not
meth, meth. But every day before we at the gym, before we went through our routine at the gym, they would run a mile lap. And so right when we got to this, it was at New Year's that year, just a few months prior. I told her I'm going to quit for New Year's, and I quit, and I didn't pick up a cigarette, after that. But when I got when we started training at this gym, I had finally got my first running leg, and so I was like, I'm going to run this mile. But the first time that we tried to do it, I made like 2 blocks and I threw up. I was that bad out of shape, and so. But every day when we go to the gym, I would run one more block further than I did the day before. One more block, and that
adds up.
Yeah, and I think that's, a good lesson with life in general, man. Like, you are not going to get where you want in one shot.
Without putting in the
Without
legwork.
putting in some work, without
no pun
doing
intended,
literally. But,
baby steps, though.
Yeah. Baby steps, yeah.
Totally.
It's nothing in life worth having. It comes easy, and we've all heard it. And so, every day I would just run a little bit further than the day before. And I remember the first time that I finished that mile, there was a pride in that I had never. It had been a very, very long time since I had felt a pride like that. I just ran that mile on this prosthetic leg that, it hurts all the time, but I ran that mile, that entire thing. I didn't stop, and I kind of caught fire after that. We ended up signing up to do a 5K, the Dirty Dash.
Well, hang on just a sec.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out where you're at mentally at this point. So yeah, you must have caught fire because you've came out of a hopeless situation, and now you're running miles. So the confidence must have just been building up. You know what I mean? Like, how are you mentally right then? Like, things are happening. You're seeing the karma, positive things.
Yeah, when I think really, when me and my wife got together, anybody who's been around my wife for 5 minutes, like she's just got this smile that lights up the room, and when you're around her, you want to be a better person, and
peaceful energy.
Yeah, there was. She was the calm in the storm for me. She was where I found that peace, and we were together every single day. And so all of a sudden, like, my heart was at rest. My mind slowed down enough to where I could start appreciating. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're gonna make me tear up.
Yeah. It was incredible, man.
Yeah.
Because here's this person who she could pick anybody, and she picked me. Right. This dude who'd been shot 21 times, been to prison, didn't have anything to offer her. I didn't. I wasn't working. I was just going to school, trying to get through school.
By typical dating standards.
Yeah. I had nothing to offer, But yet she loved me from day one, man. She never looked at me like I was anything less than amazing. Sorry.
It's incredible.
Stupid feelings.
So could you tell us a little bit about what you saw in him that made you feel that he was the guy?
Well, I tried to deny it because I myself had just gotten out of prison and been on quite the journey myself, and I had told myself, I'm going to be like a nun for the first year I get out. I need to discover who I am in this world and where my place is and how I want to live my life, and what direction I want to go from there. And so running into Dorian right away, literally 24 hours out of prison, I was like, oh no. So I really tried to pump the brakes on it, but there was no...
There was no stopping.
There was no stopping what was going on.
The brakes were broken.
Well, you know what? I always have skeptical hippo eye when people are like, you hear that name, you can't be in a relationship in the first year of it. Well, why?
Yeah.
Not everyone's the same, right?
No,
right.
No.
And in a lot of cases, it's been proven a woman. Like, I think they did, and not to go back in time, but like in the 30s, they did this big study on what made millionaires successful. And the highest percent of them were happily married and had women that were supportive, talking. So I think there's a lot of value gained in that.
Yeah,
So-
and it really was for me, I was already I felt really good about where my life was going at that point. I was going to school. I had no idea what I was going to do once I graduated, but I was doing something. I was doing something positive, and I was doing something good for myself. So I was going to school. I was very healthy.
The love of a good woman can do. What can it do for a man? I think it can do phenomenal things.
Look at where I'm at today, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, a huge part of my success. Because this woman was right by my side. When I started to falter and think that I couldn't, she was going, get your ass up. Why can't you? Like, you look at what you've been through, and you want to complain about doing this. Like, get your ass up.
Yeah.
So, it really
puts things in perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And when you have somebody like her who's not afraid to tell you, you're being a dipshit, or who's not afraid to tell you, you're not wrong in feeling this way, but get up, brush it off, you can do it, And so it was really incredible to see as soon as we got together. When I say my life hit, somebody hit the nitros button, that's how I felt. So, all of a sudden I ran this mile. I hadn't ran since I was a kid, since I was in high school doing sports. So we ran this mile, then we signed up for my 5K. We ran a 5K, and when I came across the finish line at that first 5K at the Dirty Dash, there's all these people, just cheering me on. Yeah, it was an amazing feeling, because all of a sudden people are coming up to me going, man, you inspired me. To see you come across that finish line, to see you running up that hill, like that inspired me. And I never looked at myself like that, like me inspiring other people, but doing that one run. Next thing I know, we're signing up for a race like every weekend. We were running, 5Ks, 10Ks, and then we were trying half marathons. So we're running all these races.
Well, how you got to feel if you're on the sideline? And you're like, yeah, I was going to run this, but...
and then a dude with one leg sprints by you. I
sprained my ankle 6 months ago in a fake football interview. And then you come jogging past them.
Yeah,
that happened a lot.
Yeah, all inspiration.
It happened a lot.
Because it's like, oh shit, girls see that guy got one leg, he's running fast. I'm over here complaining about a hangnail.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, throughout the years have just it's been really
it's inspiring, yeah.
And thank you for all the people who've taken the time to send me messages or write me letters, whatever it is, just saying thank you for being who you are, inspiring me to get up off my ass and get off the couch and get out there and do something. So thank you to all those people who have said something to me, and all those people who haven't said anything to me. I hope that something that I do continues to inspire you to do better.
So you got the love of a good woman. You're competing in things like the Dirty Dash now.
Yeah.
When did that dream? When you're like, fuck this, I need to make it to the Olympics.
Like I've always, that just kind of fell into my lap, literally. So I started. I always loved being in the gym. I love pushing weights. I love pumping iron, and I decided I want to do a bodybuilding competition. And so that is a whole different level of training. Like it's brutal. I think physically that's probably the hardest thing that I ever did was get ready to compete in a bodybuilding competition. So I'm preparing for this, and I'm working my ass off, because I don't want to just compete. Like the person in me, I want to win. I want to get up there and smash these dudes. That's my mentality. If I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do a half-ass. Like
think of all that ammunition you got inside you, because you've been through so much adversity. That's why I think guys that are competitors or like exercise extreme, I think they have an advantage over other people in business and everything else, because they've stressed themselves and taken their bodies down into where you were whittled down to you had no means to be a man.
Yeah,
right?
Nothing.
All that was stripped, and so to make it to there,
well,
so you can pull from
places,
from failure other people have never even seen.
Yeah. And when you have that in your rear view, it's like, I can tell you there is a drive to never want to, never ever step foot in that direction again. But I just really, there was a fire that no one could extinguish during this time, man. I just wanted to be the best, and I didn't want to just compete. I wanted to win. And so my first bodybuilding competition, I was up in the class. I think there was like 20 other dudes in my division, all able-bodied, and I took 5th. So I was really, really proud of that. So when I got up, top 5, get a trophy. And so I got called out, man, and to do my first show and to beat out 15 able-bodied dudes, I mean, that was huge for me. And so I was doing that. I won 5th place in that. And then I decided I wanted one of my coaches, Brian Mitchell over at Epoch, amazing personal trainer. I've been training with him, and he me and him decided that we were going to do some powerlifting competitions. And so I did a few powerlifting competitions right after my bodybuilding competition, and I got 7 so far. I've won 7 state records and a world record for powerlifting. And
Wow.
so I was competing, running, doing powerlifting, doing bodybuilding, training, MMA with my wife. We were just all over the place athletically. And so it was right after my bodybuilding competition, I get this phone call, and he was like, "Hi, my name's Dave so-and-so. I'm USA coach for USA Bobsled and Skeleton. We've been hearing your name a lot. We were wondering if you would be interested in coming up to Calgary, Canada in 2 weeks and trying out for the USA team." And I'm going, "What? Like, who is this really?" I thought it was a prank call at first.
Yeah.
Because I'd never even seen a bobsled in person. Never even seen it.
Jamaican bobsled team.
Yeah.
What the
Like,
fuck's
what?
going on there?
Like, who in the fuck are you really? Like,
Jamaican.
I thought it was a prank call, but he's like, "No, I'm serious. Like, we've heard your name several times," and it was just because I was just all
In the
over the
community,
map.
yeah.
The athletic community, I was just all over the place. I was doing so many different competitions at so many different levels, high competitive levels that they had heard my name a couple times. So at that point in my time in my life, I don't know if you guys seen that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
where he says yes to everything. Like, that's how I felt my life was. Anything that was coming at me positive, yeah, let's do it. Yes. And it drove my wife crazy, but it really opened up some amazing doors for us. And so when he called and asked if I would be willing to come up and try out, I said absolutely. So I ended up 2 weeks later meeting a bunch of the team in Pocatello and driving up to Canada. And one of the things I was terrified driving up there wasn't getting in a bobsled or any of that. It was making it across the border, because Canada's just not like felons coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was scared
true.
that I was going to get to the border and have this amazing opportunity, and it was going to get shut down and they were going to send me home. Like, I was terrified that was going to happen, but because I was with an entire team of athletes, I don't think they batted an eye. They let me through, and I remember how relieved I felt when we crossed the border. I was like, now's my time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shine. Like, I'm gonna tear this up.
That is your sign.
Yeah, and so we get up to the park, and I'm training for bobsled, for the 2-man bobsled. So they wanted me to be a push brake man for the bobsled team, so that I'm the engine basically. They wanted somebody powerful that could get a good start off the block, and that's what makes or breaks a race for bobsled and skeleton is your start. If you have a great start and you're fast on your start, that's going to carry down the track. And so
Herschel Walker, interesting fact.
You explode, yeah, because it's all about that power off
Yeah,
the line.
yep.
It's that 6-inch step.
Yep. If you're 1/10 of a second quicker than the guy next to you, you're going to win.
Yeah.
Really.
A hundredth of a second.
100th of a second. I mean, and these races, when you watch these races, the bobsled and skeleton races, they are won by 100th of a second.
Yep.
Like when I won my first year competing, I ended up winning third. I was third in the world, and I won that third place by what was it, 2/10 of a second? 2/10 of a second.
Wow.
Damn.
So, but I'm up trying out for the team in Canada, and I've been training for that 2 weeks for bobsled. So I've been, getting beat the shit out of in the back of this bobsled for 2 weeks. And the skeleton coaches kept coming over, and going, "Hey, dude, you are built for skeleton. Come try it. Just come try it." But when you're watching these guys fly down the track, and so for those of you who don't know what skeleton is, so luge is when you're going down the bobsled track. It's an ice track, feet first. Skeleton is when you go down head first on a 1-man sled. So you're watching these guys fly down the track head first at speeds 80 plus miles an hour. They're just a blur when they're going by. I'm thinking, there's no fucking way you're getting me on one of those things.
Yeah.
There's no way. And so
A dart to death.
yeah, so but every day these coaches are going, "Dude, just try skeleton." And the bobsled coaches kept getting pissed off because they're like, "Leave my bobsled guys alone." They didn't want me going over to skeleton. And so at the end of that 2 weeks, they were having the first ever World Cup for para athletes for skeleton. And so I was just planning on watching the World Cup. I never got to see any kind of World Cup. I was excited. And 3 days before the World Cup, the coaches one of the coaches, Mike Quick, he came up to me and he says, "Hey, do you want to be a world-class athlete?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." He goes, "Do you want to make history?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Get on the fucking sled."
Yeah.
And I was like, fine, I'll try it. So I remember sitting at the bottom of the track the day I was going up to try this, and they start you when you've never done it before, they start you. It's called the Damen start. It's the ladies start. Ladies in German. So they start you at the Damen start, which is like, different on every track, but it's usually about 2/3 of the way up the track. You're going a lot slower. Usually you're only hitting speeds around like maybe 50 or so miles an hour. And I remember just panicking. And so I called my wife and I'm like, I'm going to die on this thing. I survived 21 bullets and the skeleton stuff's going to be the death of me. And I'm just panicking, freaking out. And once again, she's always been the calm in the storm for me. And she said, look at everything you survived. You've lived through 21 bullets. What are you fucking scared of? Quit being a bitch and get on the sled.
Yeah.
Wise words from a wise woman.
Yeah.
And so that day I went down, and when I got to the bottom of the track, I don't know if I was excited that I was still alive or that I was just thrilled that I actually loved it. Like it's intense, man. When you're going down head first and you got the ice, literally half an inch from your face.
80 miles an hour.
Yeah, 80 miles an hour. Like it's an adrenaline rush. And but I fell in love with it the first time I went down. I was like, this is it. Like this is where I want what I want to do. And so they don't ever move somebody up the track very quickly like they did me, but they wanted to see what I was made of. And at the time, I didn't know what they were doing. But on day 2, which is unheard of, they end up throwing me to the top of the track. And they said, it's not that different. Just, go from the top. And so it was way different. But
30 miles. 30 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, when you go from the top,
skateboard,
you get the G-force. And so
that
G's is something else.
You're hitting, sometimes 4.5, 5 Gs on some of these turns. And so you're finding muscles in your neck that you didn't know you had, trying to keep your head off the ice. But so I end up having 3 runs that day. My first 2 runs, I get down after my second run, and all these coaches and athletes were standing over looking at the time and clock, all talking, and kept looking back at me. I was like, did I do something wrong? He's like, no. We just want to let you know that because of your times, and keep in mind, second day I've ever done this thing, because of your times that you just hit on those 2 runs, you qualified for the World Cup. You want to compete tomorrow. I'm going,
yeah.
What? Like, are you serious? I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's like, look, you're here. Why not? And so on day 3 of me ever trying this sport, I ended up competing in my first World Cup up in Calgary, Canada, and I took second up there in my first race. And
nice.
And so at that point in time, the coaches, obviously, they asked me to if I wanted to go finish the World Cup over in Europe with the team. We came home and we only had like a month to make it happen. So we're doing fundraising and all these
a month to get our passports
a month to get our passports, and like we were scrambling. And so everything happens for a reason, and these things, all these opportunities that were coming my way, it's just a product of not slowing down, of every day
putting in the work.
When I put my foot down, is it one in the direction I want to be going? And it didn't matter how little a step that was. It was just for years after I got out of prison, it was just always a step in the right direction.
I wonder, I'm trying to look back at your story and think about like the most critical point where your life could have turned back around in a bad direction. I think you moving from your situation when you got out where you almost relapsed was probably one of the most pivotal points in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because
had to be.
I'm just out of prison.
Just be self-aware.
Yeah, and
that's growth. That's rehabilitation.
Yeah, and it could have very easily, and I've thought about that a lot. Like, what if I would have? Well, what if I wouldn't have ran into her? All these things that have happened in my life because of that step in the right direction. Because I said, you know what? No, I'm not doing that. Those old behaviors, those old habits. Those are the things that got me in trouble, thinking that I can have just, I can do it just one time, or I can, those type of thinking is what fucking ends people,
Right.
what puts you back in prison. Thinking that just because you've been sober for 5 years, been sober for 10 years, that
I've got it figured out.
Yeah, that you can do it one time and be okay. That is not the fucking case.
Yeah.
People ask me, how do you do it? How did you do it all these years and not relapse? How did you go all these years without going back down that road? And the answer is simple, people. Is that a step in the right direction?
Yeah.
Do I want that life again? I don't want any part of that life. I have been given a second chance, and my life is absolutely incredible. Even on my worst days, my life is incredible, and I'm surrounded by incredible people. I have an amazing wife, and my life is beautiful.
Yeah, and I think you probably, like me, I think at some point too, maybe it's age, maybe it's whether you're going through recovery, addiction problems, or whatever it is. For me now, I get to a point where I don't consider it, but like even in situations where there's going to be people going out or alcohol involved in it, a lot of times I look at the situation now and I go, does that add any value to my life if I go?
And me and my wife talked about that just the other night. But with not just with your actions, but with your words. Like, are my words, when I open my mouth, is that adding anything valuable to the conversation? When I speak, am I adding anything positive and valuable to what's going on around me?
I'm trying to do this new thing where, like, you know, when you get a text message from someone, whether it's a business thing or whether it's whatever it is, a friendship thing, and you want to respond and you're like, you know, fuck, you're kind of like, you're irritated or you want to send just that flash. I have a 24-hour rule now where I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to do anything for 24 hours. I'll come back to it in 24 hours if I feel the same way, to see if it's a real emotion or just like a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I give kudos to you, man, because that's probably something that I should do.
I screw it up. It doesn't work every day, but
sure.
I'm trying to add that to my life, because it's like a lot of times I think as humans we just want to be loved, and you know we're all insecure in our own ways and stuff like that. We all make mistakes. And so when you're dealing with other people, I try to humanize them too and bring myself back and go, okay, let me think about it for a day, because in a day you can reflect on it, like, what's their point of view? Where are they coming from? So for me, I think it's helpful, but I need to do it more.
And I mean, seriously, kudos to you, man, because I think more people need to do that. Like, if we took 5 minutes to really think about, okay, because I mean, we all do it. Like, trust me when I say I am far from perfect. Like,
yeah.
Like, I make mistakes every single day of my life. Like, we all do. But it's are we trying to be better than we were yesterday? And you know, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Are you just doing the same thing and hoping for a different result, or are you willing to do something different and see how it changes your life? You know,
right.
So that's probably a good thing, because I answer text message emotionally all the time. And I mean, to be honest with you guys, so after I did the last show, I was like, man, I came home, I was telling my wife about you guys, like, these guys are great, man. Like, I had a great time with them. And then when I saw that clip of the next show that you did, like, I was angry. I was like, man, it seemed like there was a complete reverse on the attitude and how you guys felt about me, I guess. And so at first I was just angry. I was like, I'm not going back on that show, you know, forget this. But like, it was taking a moment to step back and find out what happened with you and what happened, you know, with the conversation with the officer that was messaging you. And you know, I think you guys are awesome, man. Like, and thank you for having me back on. But it was taking a minute to go, okay, well, you know, they're just trying to see both sides. They're just trying to get the whole picture.
To the audience.
Yeah, and you know, for anybody out there who wants to dive into this, like, I encourage you. Like, I think anybody can really go down and get the police report on this. I don't think there's anything
holding public information
holding you back. Like, I encourage people to go down and get that report and make your own decision off what you read, what discrepancies you find. Like make your own decision. Like, that's for you to make. But like, I have
for
never.
You've moved on.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
You know, there's so many other things happening in my life. Like, this is part of my life, and it's part of my story, and it's part of the way that I can help people. And so I take the tools that I have and the opportunities that I've had, and I'm trying to do something positive with it. And if you're not taking something positive out of this story and what I'm doing, then I feel bad for you. I really do. And I hope that you find some kind of peace and positivity in your life.
So let's say we've got someone out there, maybe in their early 20s, male or female, that listen to this show, that are going through legal issues, drug addiction, failure. What would your advice be to them?
Find something that think about it. Step back for a second. Think about something that you are passionate about, something that you love doing. Like for me, like really health, like gym. The gym was really kind of my block, you know, what I stood on for a while, and that's what helped me focus and on the positive things. When I was in the gym and I was letting out those frustrations, I was letting them out on the iron, you know what I mean? So when I walked out of the gym, I always felt better.
That's part of my rule too. I was having a discussion with my girlfriend the other day about something. I was like, I should have went and worked out. Like, because I was mad about some transaction that happened that didn't involve, but like, I'm like, before I was angry, I should have just went to the gym, because I think the gym does two things for you. I think mentally it boosts your confidence, and I think all these people taking anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, man, I think if they just stress themselves out physically, they would relieve a ton of. You boxed,
so
we
better,
boxed.
man.
How much are you thinking about your bills, your old lady problems,
when someone's punching you in the face?
Yeah, and when you're completely exhausted, so you're doing two things. And you know, if you go back on the science and the data, is how we evolved as humans, hunter-gatherers, tribal. I mean, our bodies, we were built to not survive in nature. And how we survived in nature and came up is insane. But they were putting themselves in extreme situations physically, whether it's against animals or whatever, that hunter-gatherer mentality. And if we're not doing that to our bodies anymore, where does all that energy go?
Yeah.
I think it goes into stress and anxiety, and I think for a lot of cases, if I milk it at the gym, or if I have a great day, let's say I go in there and do a circuit training, just 25 minutes, and murder myself, I feel fantastic afterwards. I really do. Emotionally, physically, I may be tired and drained, thirsty, but like mentally, it's such a good feeling to drain yourself and to forget about all the fucking bullshit in the world and just sweat.
Yeah, and when you walk out of that gym and you have exerted yourself, and you know, there's just something about doing that to your body. And there has never been a time where I've walked out of the gym and go, well, I feel like shit now. Not ever, not one time, you know. So it goes back to taking care of yourself and taking the time to take care of yourself. And we're all guilty of it. Like I said, I'm guilty of it. Like this year has been really rough on me. I have not been in the gym like I used to be because of how much I'm working. And so, but I'm noticing that, and I mean, we've talked about that, to where, you know what, I see how it is affecting me mentally, not doing that, and not going in there and releasing some of those stresses. And so, you know, we're just constantly evolving, and you know, we may fall back a little bit, but you know, you just got to keep your eye on the prize. And you know, there's so many amazing things that are still happening in my life that, you know, I will never go back to that.
Where do we go from here? I mean, I'm a pro Dorian Willis out on the road. I think what you do for students in schools and stuff like that, obviously you've got to make, you know, support a family and stuff like that. But what does your future look like? And what would you like to do with your story as far as, because it's got to be beneficial, right?
Well,
I mean, you can't not take some motivation from that type of failure and from where you've came from. So where we go from here? Where does Dorian Willis go from here?
There's been so many other like just incredible things that I have got to do over the last, especially last 5 years. On top of speaking, I had the opportunity to start coaching at some really incredible camps across the country for kids with limb deficiencies. And so the big one that I do, it's with an organization called Nubability, which is down in Southern Illinois. And
I like the name.
It's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Nubability.
So this year, this is the third. This was the third year that I've done the camp. 2018, you know, that was the third year that I had done the camp. And last year we had 175 limb different kids and 60 something limb different coaches from all around the country at this camp.
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible. They offer like 20 different sports, and I'm their head track and field coach. And so some of these kids, man, like 3 of my kids that have been with me since from the first time I went and coached. 3 of my kids went and competed in junior nationals, and every one of them won first place gold.
That's awesome.
At junior nationals. And so, you know, having their parents, you know, message me with videos of I mean, it's just been incredible. But so I'm coaching all these camps, and that's something that that I'm going to continue doing that. Like, I love, besides speaking, coaching is where it's at for me, man. Like, I love coaching these kids. I built some just incredible relationships by doing this. But also last year we put on the first camp here for kids with limb deficiencies, thanks to Bogus Basin and Recreation Unlimited. We teamed up with Nub Ability and put on a camp here up at Bogus Basin, and we had the first camp last year. We had 27 kids with all limb deficient come to Boise, Idaho. We took them up. Bogus sponsored all their passes, all their equipment, and these kids, by the second day, they were shredding down the hill on snowboards, skis.
That's awesome.
So we're going to be doing that again this year. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. But the coaching and speaking, that's just really been, and all the athletics, I think that's just been kind of the foundation for what I'm working on, which is finishing up my book, going on a speaking tour to promote my book, and so hopefully, that will be coming to fruition this year. That's what I'm going to really be plugging away on this year. So
awesome. So it sounds like Dorian Willis is going to continue to help people, and for all those critics of your story and all the bad shit that we got, I would ask them to look at it like me and say, okay, here's a dude that was, running and gunning, and if I would have been the police officer in that situation, my training, I would have pulled the trigger, right? I don't know how many times, but at what point do we look at you and go, look at the value he's giving to our society now? How many people are volunteering their time to help people with, whatever disorder, learn how to snowboard, learn how to ski? And so the path that you're on, for anyone to criticize you now, I think they're ignorant, for one. And for two, we need more people like you in this world. Especially that have failed.
I appreciate it.
Because more can be learned from people like you. Listen, I've said it before. I don't need some guy preaching to me about alcoholism that's some tie-wearing preacher. I don't.
Right.
Give me the drunk guy that lost everything, including his wife and his kids, and I want to hear his story. How did he come back? Because I can pull stuff from my experience and fill it in. So what you're doing out there in the community is awesome. And I guarantee you those people criticizing you, what the fuck are they doing? Not a fucking thing. They're online criticizing guys.
Yeah, day in, day out for whatever they're doing like that. Once again, I'm not angry at them. I don't put any stock in what they're saying.
And
I feel sorry for you, man.
Yeah.
So if through all this, and you know what, this goes out to some of the cops out there that still, when they see me, that's all they see is that drug addict, that piece of shit, that criminal. I feel bad for you, man. Like,
yeah.
If all you took from this story was if you're focusing on what happened that day that I got shot, what did the cops do? What, is what I'm saying, is that really what fucking happened? Like, I'm telling my story. Like, this is my story. I tell it. I've been telling the same story for the last 10 years. Every time I go in, my story's never changed. If you look through videos from 10 years ago, my story has not changed in 10 years, man. This is my story, and that's part of me telling it. I'm going to tell you my story the way I remember it, the way that I remember things happen. And you know what? If I don't remember some things, if there's something that I'm saying that is wrong, then once again, to those two cops that were involved in the shooting, come sit down across from me, man. The offer's still there. It's still on the table. And, maybe I can learn something. Maybe there's something that I need to hear from you. Who knows? I am never going to be against that. So we could
even do it in a podcast setting. That keeps people on the honest.
Exactly. So, if you guys want to sit down, I'm always willing to do that, And for those of you out there who had nothing but negativity and bad shit to say after the last one, like, once again, why don't you take time to really listen to what this message is about, why I'm here today on this podcast. It's not about bashing on the cops. It's not about any of that. It's about what I'm doing in the community and how can I continue to do that. And if I'm not staying, you got to be relevant, you have to stay relevant. And so I'm going to continue to get out here and put myself out there on podcasts, on the radio, wherever I can, because I want to stay relevant and I want to stay in the scene, and I want to be able to help more, because if I'm not doing this, then I'm not helping anybody.
Yeah, and if you're super pro-police, and mind you, if the cops are doing dirty shit, I'll be the first one. I fucking hate it. I've been through the legal system. I've been a part of a canned statement. I get it. But if you're looking at it from that side, take into consideration this. What is he doing now with his life? And if I took my time and energy off of what he did and put it on what he's doing, maybe I would see a different light.
Well,
another thing people don't talk about that you've talked about, we talked about it last time. We've had conversations on the phone about it. Like, if you're hating on Dorian because of the situation with the police, you got to realize he's friends with the current police officers. And
good dudes.
Yeah, and so, like, those guys aren't going to befriend him. You know, you're always going to have... And Dorian's, like, we're fully aware, you know, there's millions of transactions that go on between the police and civilians every day no one talks about because nothing happens, because it's good stuff. And I think Dorian's, you know, when we got, I mean, a mass of hate towards him, a lot of positivity towards him. And I think on the cop side, they get the same. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because
I'm
the
sure.
people, and so there's this weird water to try to navigate. And
well, it can't be easy for you guys. I can't imagine some of the stuff that you guys were.
I just want the listeners to be. We can be critical, right? But let's be subjective on where you're at now. And in reality, we could use 1 million more Dorians in this country. For every Dorian out there helping, how many kids did you help up there? Count all of them.
Man,
you affected all those lives in a positive manner. I mean, that's what we need to take from his story, is if we got more people out there doing this and being positive, we can build a better society. So I think what you're doing is great.
Well, and I've had the opportunity over the last 10 years since I've been out. I've spoke to over 100,000 kids, and so that's just me speaking. That's besides the camps, but the one thing that I have that nobody online will ever have, and so this will give me an advantage from day one, is my wife. What?
Yeah.
It's once again,
the Cheeto eating trolls out there.
They don't have a Billy.
And the fucked up thing is I've done it. I've been tribal or saw something and been like, fuck those guys, or done
we've all done it.
But like, I really think if you pull back the layers on this isn't a story about the police. It isn't a story about any of that. It's a story about redemption.
That's just the components of it.
And how we can take, the lessons that can be learned from your story are phenomenal. You are a failure. You had nothing.
In every
literally
sense of the
nothing
word.
To build on. You're a candidate for suicide for sure.
Candidate for recidivism. I can never say that word. Recidivism. Thank you.
Recidivism rate, which is, I don't know what it is in Idaho, but in a lot
it's
of
insane,
states,
dude.
it's above 70% most places, right? In places like Baltimore, I think it's more like 80.
Yeah.
So,
well, for men in Idaho, it's like 82%. For women, for men, it's like 72%. For women, it's like 85.
Jesus, that is a failure in anyone to pull
in every sense of the
word.
Any
judge, anyone that wants to sit down and go, this works. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Not even a little bit.
At some point, I think the people of this country, what's happening in Memphis and stuff like that, we've talked about. My ideas. I think that's all going to boil over at some point. But regardless, let's cap it off, and we'll bring Dorian back if he wants to come back. I'd like to dive in a little more, kind of what you're doing in the future, and I'd kind of like to hear some stories. Maybe even bring on someone that you've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Like a kid that you've coached or something like that.
That would be awesome.
Maybe we could bring some more exposure to disabled athletes and stuff like that. That'd be fun, and maybe get the message out that way. But just so the fans know, and everyone that's dealt with the first episode, it was our most popular episode, most controversial episode for sure, and we're okay with that. Like, the popularity's good. We learned that there's two sides to this that you're not going to really sway. I'm going to try anyway and say, on the police side, look at what he's doing now in the community. Do you want him out there, or do you want other people out there that maybe that never committed a crime, but do they add any value to our citizens? And on the other side too, I would ask, look at the side of the police, and realize there's millions of transactions a day that don't take place. Just try not to be so fucking cynical about both sides, and realize everyone's human. And like I said, if we can just get back to him, I think what he's done on the police side, I hope they look at that. And then also on the side of people that are pro-police that want to hate you because of what you did, I would just ask them, hey, I understand your views. you're allowed to have them, but take a look at what he's doing in the community.
Well,
and that says something.
If anybody can look me in the eyes and say that I have not paid my dues, then we can have a discussion. Because
and I'll fall back to what every judge looks at on these same people that would say no. Judges look at what someone does in the community. That's a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And by all means, everything that I've heard about the 2 officers that were involved in the shooting, I've talked to other police officers, because that was one of the first questions that I've asked a few of my friends that are police officers. These guys as a person, like outside of their when they're not in their uniform, like, are they good people, man? Are they good dudes? And by all accounts, the 2 officers that were involved in the shooting, I've never heard anything bad about them. Not one thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we forget. Just because it's so common to see police every day on the road, to see some of the extreme fucking and insane stuff they have to go through, whether it's pulling dead bodies out of cars on the freeway. I mean, dude, police are candidates just like military guys for PTSD and everything else.
Absolutely.
They do a lot to protect our communities, and I think a lot of times we get overshadowed by the bad media, and we forget about all those transactions they've done that are good with the people.
Right.
And so, I think as Americans, instead of being on a pro-police or anti-police, we need to be more like pro-American, figure out, okay, maybe this system doesn't work. How do we come together and make it better? And community outreach stuff is big.
It is.
And I think relationships with police officers and former convicted felons that are doing community outreach is huge. It's fucking huge. It'll be huge in a school. It would be huge anywhere. It's a good foundation to have, and I think it ties our community in stronger. And
the current chief of police, who he just got the job not too long ago, like a year or two ago, Bill Bones. Man, they got a great chief of police, man. That dude, I have nothing but praise for that guy. Like, he is incredible.
I've had since I've got sober, we were talking. The type of people that have come in my life have all been super positive. And I'm friends with a couple Boise police officers now.
What you put out there is what you attract, man.
Dude, they are just fucking great people. Yeah. Great people. And like, I honestly am friendly enough with them now. Like, I worry about them a little bit because my dad was a cop. There's always that, because I'm friends with them. But like, yeah, man, everyone's human. We're all Americans. And so like, I really want people to watch the first episode, take from it whatever you want, but look at both sides of this, and then what we could do community outreach wise, either police, but I think what you're doing in the community is super positive, and that would be my goal for the next show. I think is bring on someone that you've coached, a life that you've impacted, because I think it's one thing to hear your story, it's another thing to see how your story has impacted lives, which no doubt 110% it's impacted a lot of lives, and so I want to hear their story about.
I like to think so, man. That's that's why I do it, and it's guys like you that are giving me the opportunity to get jump on and get out there on a larger scale, just so people know that I'm not the only person out there doing it, man. Like, I know some incredible people that are out there doing it every day, across the country. So I'm just really fortunate and blessed to have some incredible people in my life, and guys like you that take the time to hear both sides. So thank you. Right on. And could you give a quick shout out to your YouTube channels and some of your workout stuff? So if you just type in my name on YouTube, Dorian Willis, there's quite a few videos of me speaking. Really, there's not too many videos on YouTube of my workouts, but there are a couple promo videos that we did on YouTube with my workouts. There's actually a couple really cool promo videos that we did, for sponsors and stuff that are on YouTube leading up to the World Cups, and so those are on there. But if you want to hear what I go and I speak about and the positivity that I try to share when I go and speak, there are several videos on there. I got the opportunity to speak at the largest convention for people with disabilities in the nation. They have it down in Florida. It's called the Family Cafe. They had over 15,000 people, and so it was really incredible. Wow. So that's on there. There's some really great videos, but yeah, check it out, man. I'm all over the place. So you can follow me on social media. It's just like Facebook, Instagram, just my name, Dorian Willis, and it's Willes. So that's why people sometimes have a hard time finding me. Willis, yeah. Okay. So a lot of people spell it IS. IS, yeah. Okay. So it's
or IE.
No, just
IS.
Yep. Willes is the last name, and I'm the only Dorian Willis in the world, so I'm not hard to find on social media.
Literally the only one in the world, especially with that story. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. Pro Age Podcast Season 2. We out.
Out!
That went well.
Jeez.